After years and years of lifting, should you continue to chase strength, or are there other metrics you should foster?
Our first caller is Douglas from Malaysia.
Douglas, what's up, man? How can we help you?
Hi, good morning. So I've come to a point in my hypertrophy program where I believe the risk of lifting heavier will outgain the rewards. So like tendinitis and, pain in joints, like muscle. 38 years old, 38 on just gone 38 on Monday, 5'8", 35, 83 kgs, 17 to 15% body fat, and put on 7 kg of muscle in the last year. I want to keep on making progress without risking injuries.
Yeah, good. That's
So I'm just
good question. So this at some point, people will hit this roadblock, right? You've been training for a while. Strength is a great metric to measure, to chase. But after a certain point, I mean, you can't keep getting stronger, right? That's number one. Number two, when you start to get to a certain point, little breakdowns in technique, even the smallest breakdowns, can make exercises a bit more dangerous than they did before when they were maybe lifting lighter. The question you're asking is actually one that I think all of us in this room encountered ourselves. Now, there's a lot of different ways to challenge the body. One of them is with heavier weight. The other ones are challenging things like ranges of motion, slowing down the form. One of my favorites is doing exercises that you're not proficient in, or those exercises that you haven't practiced in a while. That's an excellent one, right? So let's say you always do bilateral exercises for your low body. Doing an entire 12-week cycle of unilateral exercises would be a great version, right? So there's a lot of different ways you can challenge and stress and progress the body. Adding weight to the bar is just one of them. And at this point, based off of what you're saying, if you're noticing going heavier, you're not the rewards don't give you the payback worth the risks, then any of the ones that I mentioned would be great ways to continue to progress.
Yeah, give me an idea what your training kind of regimen looks like right now. How many days a week are you training? Do you run a full body, a split? Kind of give me an idea what the lifting looks like.
So it's 3 days a week. Kind of 5 sets of compound. So it's 5 sets of compound lifts that range from 12 reps down to 6 reps. So week 1, 2, and 3 be 12. 12, 10, 10, 8 reps. Week 3, 4, and 5. So week 4, 5, and 6 would be 10, 8, 8, 6, 4 reps. And it'll be split. It won't be single body part. It'll be obviously legs on one day and then split on day 2 and day 3.
Okay. So are you, how many times a week are you hitting a muscle group? Are you hitting it once or twice?
Probably about twice.
Twice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like the idea of, it sounds like too, you have kind of a traditional bodybuilding type of a split or a routine. Running something like MAPS Performance, I think would be phenomenal for someone like you. There's probably going to be some exercises in there that you're not familiar with or you don't do a lot. Getting really good at the Z press or a matrix lunge or Arnold press. Like there's just exercises in there that don't fall into the category of like the normal, barbell lifts. And doing what Sal said is just getting really proficient at those. Plus you're also going to address mobility. So, and more multiplanar movements, which is something that's also going to support the joint. So, have you ran any of our programs before?
I haven't read any of your programs. Only been introduced to your podcast 6 months ago by my partner, who calls you the podcast gods for fitness.
Smart guy, very smart guy.
Listen to that guy.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have Doug, unless the guys disagree. I say MAPS Performance is a direction that I would point you in.
How long have you been working out for? And it says you play rugby as well. Yeah. So how long have you been lifting for?
Since pretty much university, so about 18 years.
Oh yeah. You know what also would be good? Old time. Mm-hmm. That would be the furthest away.
Either one of those would be great.
Old time strength would be the furthest away from probably. I mean, with 18 years of lifting experience, you've probably done a lot. Yeah. Old time is going to. I guarantee there's going to be lots of exercises that you've never done. that are in that program. And it's going to strengthen your body in ways that you probably never have. And it's probably going to highlight some weaknesses that I would, based on the sport that you play, especially if you train and practice regularly, you don't need necessarily to train for conditioning because you're probably playing rugby. I think old time would even be a good option.
Yeah. I mean, and rugby is such an explosive sport too. And so like, and you're 38 years old and it's kind of at that point where you got to start looking at longevity as part of that focal point now. And so to be able to kind of restore and recover is going to be a little bit of a higher priority for you than just like maintaining this like crazy explosive strength. You already have the crazy explosive strength. I'm going to assume to maybe dive in a little bit more into the mobility. That's why Adam's suggestion with MAPS Performance has that kind of built in on those days in between. And I think once you get into the rhythm of that, you're going to see how your body responds to that and how your joints are just going to really thrive and benefit from that.
Douglas, to give you an example, think of a race car. Let's say you have a muscle car, lots of horsepower. And somebody might say, hey, I want to make it faster. I'm going to add more horsepower. But upon further examination, they notice the wheels spin when you try to take off. You're not getting good traction. Well, somebody who really understands how to make that car faster wouldn't spend any time on trying to make a more powerful engine. They'd try to figure out how to improve the timing and the grip of the tires and sticking the power to the road. That would make the car much faster. More horsepower at that point becomes a liability. So you're at this stage of your lifting career, improving range of motion, control, mobility, they are ways of getting stronger. They definitely are. And you'll notice improvements on the field and off the field, even though the bar doesn't have any more weight on it, maybe in the past where you had to add weight to the bar. At this point, it's about control, stability, mobility, and learning new skills in the weight room. That's why I said old time. MAPS Old Time Strength is a program that's based off of the way lifters trained in the Bronze Era, right? This is like the late 1800s, early 1900s. And there's exercises and movements in there nobody does anymore. So you take an experienced lifter like yourself, you try a program like that, you're going to feel like a beginner. But you're also going to get those beginner gains. You're going to get that central nervous system adaptation. You're going to get that coordination that's going to build the skill of the muscles working together in new ways. And then when you go back to your old traditional lifts, I'm getting so many messages from people who are trying our program, Old Time, and then they're like, man, I didn't deadlift like traditionally or barbell squat traditionally for the entirety of the program for the most part. I went back to my traditional lifts. I'm stronger.
It fills so many gaps.
That's right. Yeah. And it's not because they were lifting heavier with those lifts, but rather they were bolstering parts of their body they didn't even know needed bolstering. So,
Douglas, how often are you playing rugby right now?
At the moment, it's the off season at the moment.
Oh, okay, cool.
Season's probably going to start in January.
Okay.
Time.
Personally, I like performance first, then old timey, just because of the emphasis on the mobility stuff. And I also think that you can take the mobility days and apply that to other programs like old timey or other things that we have. And I just think there's a lot of value in doing that. I agree with the what you're going to get from old timey. I just think I would take you through performance first and then old timey.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is you can get different rewards instead of just like adding kgs onto the bar. There's going to be different rewards in terms of range of motion, mobility, hitting other muscles.
100%.
If you get let me give you an example, right? Let's say you took the average man who could squat 150 pounds. You get him to add 50 pounds to his squat because he's never worked out before. He's going to notice significant improvements in his athletic performance. You get someone who's been lifting for years and years and years and years, 18 years, and they add 50 pounds to the squat. First of all, adding 50 pounds to the squat after 18 years of lifting is going to be
almost impossible.
Almost impossible. Think of all of the things that would be necessary to make that happen and all the compromises that would have to happen as a result. But even if you were able to add 50 pounds to somebody's squat after 18 years of lifting, the translation would not be the same in performance as improving control and stability or identifying areas where there's weak links. So you're in a different situation. We often don't talk to people like you when we're talking generally, because the average person is not lifted for 18 years consistently. The average person, if we're lucky, has been lifting for 6 months or a year consistently. Oftentimes they're just getting started back up. So it's a different conversation altogether. So someone like you, I mean, if you were to hire me, I'm not putting you, unless your programming's terrible and your 18 years old lifting was the worst that I've ever seen, I wouldn't focus on getting you as strong as possible at lifts that you've been doing for 18 years. I would be looking at stuff that you haven't been doing. I would be trying to identify, movement issues and mobility. And that's where I know you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
All right. So try something like old time or performance and then come back to the original.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep, absolutely. Yes. Because we're disagreeing, I'll give you both programs since I think one is better than the other to start with. And then you can choose from there and then, let us know what you think.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
You got it, man.
All right,
thanks for calling in.
Cheers.
Yeah, this is not common because most people don't train that long, that consistently.
Yeah.
But, you look at
18 years, yeah.
That's a long time. I mean, look, I ran to this at one point this year. I was like, I wonder if I could, keep pushing my deadlift past a certain point. And every 5 pounds, which is hard to add to my lift, one of my favorite lifts, it was just so much had to go into it. I had to compromise so many other lifts. Mm-hmm. I would notice if I was off a little bit, I'd hurt for like a whole week. And I'm like, okay, if I add 20 pounds to my deadlift, what am I going to get from it? I'm not going to gain a tons of muscle. It's just a number at this point. It's better if I work on things I don't normally work on. That's where I'm going to get the most bang for my buck. But you get someone who's just only been lifting for a year. Yeah, let's get you stronger. Let's just get you stronger. That's where you're going to get the most results.
Yeah, that's where the focus is. Yeah, and it builds the base. He's obviously built his base already. So now it's about preserving that, but also to challenging it in new ways that the body can benefit from. And that the only way to do that is to work on exercises and things that you're completely unfamiliar with.
So which way you go, Justin? You're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, I go performance first, and that's just because I have an inclination that he hasn't really worked on mobility yet.
You know what though? Here's the thing:
too.
we should have said don't just skip phase 1 in that case. Phase 1 is very
Go straight
traditional.
to phase 2.
Yeah, go straight to phase 2.
I can agree with that.
He's probably done a lot of that style of training right out the gates. Phase 2 would be different, likely. Right?
Yeah.